Welcome to this explainer. Have you ever tried to navigate a super crowded city block? Dodging tight sidewalks, yelling over roaring traffic, and just thought to yourself, who was this actually built for? Well, you're in the right place. Today, we're exploring a totally fascinating shift in how we build our cities. We're looking at how kids are transforming from victims of poor urban design into active, empowered architects of sustainable communities. To really grasp the urgency of this, we need to look at an absolutely staggering projection. By the year 2050, there will be over 4.6 billion children living in urban environments. Let that number just sink in for a second. 4.6 billion. We're not just talking about a tiny blip in demographics here. We are looking at a fundamental, pretty much unstoppable change in the very DNA of our cities.
So here's how we're going to tackle this massive shift today. We'll start with the urban youth boom and the unique dangers of the concrete jungle. Then we'll dive into a global space mandate, how kids are redesigning cities block by block, and finally, how we're educating the next generation to actually take the wheel.
All right, let's dive right into Section 1, the urban youth boom, and why it is essentially a demographic time bomb. Check out this UN projection. By 2050, 70% of the entire world's population is going to be under 18 years old. Just pause and think about that. 7 out of 10 people on the planet will be minors. And, as we just established, the vast majority of them will be living in urban centers. What this means is that our future cities will quite literally belong to children. Yet, historically, city planners have totally ignored this demographic. It's actually wild when you think about it, treating the vast majority of the population as a complete afterthought rather than the primary stakeholders they are. Which brings us nicely to Section 2. We have to ask, how well do our current concrete jungles actually serve this booming youth population? The problem becomes blindingly obvious when you look at modern cities from above. On one side of a dividing line, you've got these neatly organized, well-resourced neighborhoods. Spacious green lawns, secure buildings, the works. But right across the street, you have incredibly dense, crowded urban slums packed tightly together. This is what we call spatial inequity. When we talk about the dangers kids face, it's not just about crossing busy intersections. It's about this stark divide determining whether a child has a safe place to breathe, play, and just be a kid. And it gets worse when you look closer. Beyond just those spatial divides, kids in marginalized areas are constantly exposed to really severe environmental hazards. You often see kids joyfully jumping across massive, treacherous piles of colorful plastic waste and garbage. They're just trying to do what kids do, right? Play, use their imagination, have fun. But their playground is an active health crisis, presenting severe physical and environmental risks every single day. So it really boils down to 4 huge systemic ways our cities are failing our youth. First, environmental health, like that toxic waste we just talked about. Second, spatial inequity, where your zip code brutally dictates what resources you get. Third, just basic day-to-day physical protection and safety. And finally, the kicker, a complete lack of participation. Kids live with the consequences of bad urban design every day, but their voices are totally absent from the drafting table. Recognizing this massive, multifaceted crisis, the global community is finally stepping up. Let's move to Section 3 and look at the clear mandate to protect these vulnerable populations. This brings us to Sustainable Development Goal 11.7, which basically serves as our thesis here. This is not just a polite suggestion. It is a global demand. It calls for universal access to safe, inclusive, and green public spaces, specifically prioritizing kids by the year 2030. It's a recognition at the highest international levels that public space is absolutely not a luxury. It's a fundamental human right, especially for youth, whose developing brains and bodies completely rely on having safe, open spaces to thrive. And the good news? We are already seeing this mandate turn into real, measurable action. Take UN Habitat's Global Public Space Program. Since 2012, they've upgraded 85 public spaces across 36 different countries. But honestly, the most important metric here is the human one. They've directly engaged over 20,000 citizens in the process, resulting in a positive, lasting impact on more than 1.5 million people. This is exactly what it looks like when high-level policy actually hits the pavement. Okay, so we know it's necessary, and we know it's possible. Let's get into Section 4. How on earth do you actually get kids to help design complex urban infrastructure? Well, you do it by giving them the right tools. UN Habitat uses this brilliant 4-part methodology to build a framework for real participation. It starts on the ground with exploratory walks to physically assess a space.
Then they use digital surveys like Kobo Toolbox to collect hard data. Step 3 is where the magic really happens. They use the video game Minecraft to let kids digitally model their ideal community spaces. And finally, they use mixed reality to project and validate those digital designs in the real world.
Let's imagine that first step in action. In Hanoi, for example, they organize these girls' safety walks. Imagine young women and children walking their own neighborhoods in high-visibility vests, literally physically auditing the streets. They aren't reading safety statistics from some textbook. They are pointing out exactly where the lighting is too dim or where a crumbling sidewalk forces them into dangerous traffic. It gives them immediate authority and a direct voice in evaluating their own home turf. What I absolutely love about this process is the sheer variety of ways we can capture these ideas. In some places, you've got super high-tech, mixed reality projecting complex digital buildings. In others, like in Sharjah, you see a totally different hands-on approach, literally crafting parks using clay modeling and construction paper. Both methods are incredibly effective because they essentially gamify serious real-world urban planning. Whether a kid is placing a digital block in Minecraft or molding a physical tree out of clay, they're shaping their environment using a language they actually understand. But here's the thing, giving kids a voice in the design process is really only half the battle. Which brings us to our final section, educating the next generation. Participatory tools only truly work if we provide the educational framework to help students understand their environment. That's where groups like Project Learning Tree step in. Think of them as providing the vital software to accompany the hardware of urban design. Their curriculum includes a pre-K to 8th grade environmental activity guide, massive green schools initiatives, and integrated STEM strategies. It's about teaching a child not just where to put a tree in a park, but why that tree matters for urban heat, air quality, and the local ecosystem. It all comes down to connecting the dots, you know? True empowerment requires linking the physical redesign of a local space directly to structured environmental education. When a kid learns about ecosystems in a classroom with a curriculum like Project Learning Tree and then goes outside to actually design a local green space using Minecraft with UN Habitat, they aren't just memorizing facts. They are taking real ownership. We're empowering them to act as lifelong informed stewards of their communities. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought. We started by noting that 70% of the world's population will soon be under 18. If 70% of the future belongs to the youth, shouldn't they be the ones holding the blueprint today? When we give children the tools to design their world, we don't just get better parks and safer streets, we build an entire generation capable of saving the cities of tomorrow. So, next time you walk down a city street, just to ask yourself, what would this look like if a 10-year-old designed it? Thanks for exploring this with me today.